Jayanila Premadhana Corona Pracho ধ্যান প্রভু কথা গলা আচার্য ঠাকুর ধ্যান প্রভু কথা গলা আচার্য ঠাকুর কাহা মোর স্বরূপ রূপা কাহা সনাতা কাহা দাসার ঘুনাথা পতিত পাওয়া কাহার সার ঘুনাতা পতিত পাবা কাহা মোর ভট্ট যোগা কাহা কবিরা কাহা মোর একা কালে কথা গেলা গৌর নটোরা একা গেলে কথা গেলা গৌর নটোরা পাশানে কোটিব মাথা আনালে পাশিব পাশানে কোটিব গৌরাঙ্গ গুণের নিধে কথা গেলে পাবা গৌরাঙ্গ গুণের নিধে কথা গেলে পাবা সে সব সঙ্গীর সঙ্গে যে কইল বিলা যে সব সঙ্গীর সঙ্গে je koila si sangana paya kade narotamoda se sangana paya se sangana paya kande narotamoda se sangana paya kande narotamoda jayanila prema dhana koruna prachur Prabhu kotha gala acharya Thakur Prabhu kotha gala Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vaishnav Thakur Jai Vaishnav Thakur Jai Vaishnav Thakur Nitai Gaur Hariva Hariva Nitai Gaur Hariva Okay. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, who has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam simply weeps.
Jayananda Prabhu ki Jai. Cane's over there. You want to drink it? No. I can make it that far. Thank you, Ram.
So what does it mean? Just hang on me. Shanti, Shanti. Too many hands. If I had 4 hands, I'd really be in trouble. Could just hang on. My mother used to say, patience is a golden virtue. All right, fire away. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So, what does it mean to be Krishna conscious? What is the test? Is it a saffron cloth? Is it a long beard? Is it expert Sanskrit pronunciation? Is it mystic power? How can you tell? And service, these are all good. Actually, it was a rhetorical question, but I appreciate the responses. Arjuna asked the same question of Arjuna. Arjuna asked the same question of Krishna. Arjuna asked the same question of Krishna. How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? How can you tell? So Jayananda's appearance day has passed, but it is good to remember. There was some reading, but I didn't have a chance to. I wanted to share a few more, because this is the measure of what it means to be Krishna conscious. It's a person's character and qualities. And as Prabhupada affirmed, if I can find my glasses, Prabhupada wrote about Jayananda. And Mukunda Maharaj noted that it was just appropriate that Jayananda left his body, left this world, before Srila Prabhupada, because that way Prabhupada could confirm Jayananda's status. I remember Rabindra Swarup said that one of the things that impressed him and attracted him to become a devotee and take up Krishna consciousness is that you would read about these elevated states of great mystics in Christian mythology, or not mythology, in Christian tradition. They have a stigmata, that they've, I think, Saint Teresa and different people, they actually have the marks of where Jesus was nailed in their hands and their feet. Some of them can levitate. There's a number of traditional mystics in the Christian tradition. But it was always a rarefied state. And I remember reading a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And whether it was true or not, who knows, but all these yogis living in the Himalayas and levitating and appearing here and there, and I was like, I could never do that. I could, and on one hand, so what? So Rabindra Swarup said that when he met Prabhupada was obviously completely transcendental, relishing a taste and an experience. As Hayagriva said, Prabhupada had his feet firmly on the ground, but his consciousness was completely in Goloka Vrindavan. Prabhupada was the most practical person you ever met, as far as, figuring out the fastest, most practical way when the devotees were cheated by that Mr. Price, who Prabhupada nicknamed Sir Conman Fraud. Prabhupada's the one who got the money back from the guy, And there's so many different instances. I saw Prabhupada deal with that shark owner of the Devasiddhan Mandir in Detroit, and how Prabhupada just completely spun the guy around and got the house, got that beautiful temple, Devasiddhan Mandir, for practically nothing. The guy was completely fried. He said, "Your Swami hypnotized me. He hypnotized me." And when Govardhan told Prabhupada that, Prabhupada said, "Yes, I'm an old Calcutta boy." You know, it's like if you can survive in Calcutta, you can survive anywhere. You know, India can be a challenge, but Calcutta is the. Prabhupada said all the Ananda has evaporated in Calcutta. So, I'm sure you read some wonderful pastimes of Jayananda, but it is. We can obtain this state. That's my point. Rabindra Sarup was saying that Prabhupada was not only completely Krishna conscious and relishing it, but he was saying, come on, you can too. Just follow me. Here's the steps. So Jayananda was born in America. He was an all-American boy. He graduated from Cal State San Jose with a master's in engineering. You know, he was an all-American boy. He was, Mukunda Maharaj was saying, he was often in Prabhupada's classes in San Francisco. He was the only non-hippie. You know, he would show up out of respect. Sometimes he'd wear a nice, you know, dress shirt and a tie. Mukunda Maharaj said he was not only the only one who wasn't, you know, dressed properly, but he was the only one who was awake some of the time, you know. So, anyway, I'll just start. But it gives us impetus that this is the way we're meant to see the world, and we can see the world, and we can experience the world. Asking for, how do you know? How about how they walk, how they talk, how they sit? So I printed out a couple pictures. So we'll pass these around. You can figure them out. Here's Jayananda. Let's give it to the ladies first this time. Here's Prabhupada at Ratha Yatra. Jayananda at Ratha Yatra. Here's Jayananda, you know, charming one of the San Francisco police officers who said, hey, you can't park here, you can't put that cart here, and Jayananda charmed him. So Prabhupada wrote, what the? Oh, okay, shoo, that scared me, I thought I'd forgotten it. This is from Mukunda Maharaj, written in 1978. Right after Jayananda left this world. Please accept my most humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. The following was a quote from Srila Prabhupada's letter to Rameshwar Maharaj regarding Jayananda's passing. Prabhupada wrote, Jayananda's death is glorious. It is very good that he stated, what is the use of such a useless body? Better to give it up. He has left his body very wonderfully, and he has been transferred to Vaikuntha. I have already sent a condolence letter for publication in Back to Godhead magazine. Everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. Imagine this accolade. Prabhupada says, I am very proud that I had such a nice disciple. The spiritual master is very proud to have such a nice disciple. If possible, Jayananda's picture should be hung on the Rath cart of Lord Jagannath. And on all of our temples, a day must be set aside for the holding of festival in his honor, just as we do on the disappearance day of other great Vaishnavas. Jayananda, he had leukemia, and it just ravaged him. To the last minute, we'll read about that. But, and the analysis of the devotees who knew him was that what happened is he packed about 10 lifetimes of devotional service in one body and just blew out the circuits, you know. So, Jayananda's disappearance day will be celebrated each year on the day before Lord Nrsinga's appearance day. So that, he says, in accordance with Prabhupada's instructions. Okay, that we already know. So he sent out this letter. Okay, so that gives you a little vision of Jayananda. So just a few of my personal experiences. Well, this one was told to me by Rohini Sutta. This is a different Rohini Sutta. This is, anyway, it's a long story. But Jayananda joined Tamal Krishna Maharaj. They were friends from San Francisco. And when Jayananda was, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was traveling across the United States with those bus parties and doing big kirtan and college programs and book distribution, he asked Jayananda to take over in charge of one of the buses. So he was in charge of one of the bus parties. So he was traveling across America. And then when the Radha Damodar was based in New York, in that skyscraper, they were based there. So this is in New York. And Bhaktiran later on became Rohini Sutta. He had about $1,000, which in those days was big money. Still a significant amount of money. So he gave it to Jayananda, and he said, Jayananda, you just keep this for me. In case I need it, you keep it for me. So Jayananda, who knows what the impetus was, but they traveled, they had their beautiful Radha Damodar. These were the Ashtatata, 8 medals, big Radharani and Krishna, Radha Damodar. Prabhupada named them. So one day, Jayananda took that $1,000 and folded it up and made it like he would fold up petals and made a garland out of all the money and put it on Srimati Radharani. Everyone's favorite color, green. So hung it on Radharani. Now Bhaktiran had been, especially, a young American, passionate. It's not easy to surrender and live a monastic order of life. Prabhupada said, we have so many do-nots. We don't do this, we don't do that. It just means being human, but still, for the savage beasts, they're dvipada pashu, 2-legged animals. It seems it's a tall order. So he decided he was leaving. So he came to Jayananda. He was going to ask for his money back. So he said, Jayananda, I need to talk to you. So Jayananda, again, who knows what mystic power Krishna in the heart, said, okay, but let's go take darshan. Have you seen the deities yet? Have you seen Radha Damodar? No. So let's go take darshan of Radha Damodar. So they went down to the temple room, took darshan of Radha Damodar, and he saw Radharani wearing this garland. And Jayananda said, I was holding that money, but I was thinking I should give it to Radharani. So he's looking, Bhaktiran is looking at Radharani. So then Jayananda said, what do you want to talk about? Bhaktiran said, oh, nothing. Because once the money had been given to Radharani, he said, if I'd gotten that money back, he would have done something completely foolish. Who knows if he ever would have, gotten back into being a nice brahmachari, but it saved his life. So that gives you a little flavor of Jayananda. In San Francisco, 1970, I just moved into the temple at Los Angeles, Laguna Beach. But we all went up, every devotee west of the Mississippi, practically speaking, we went up to the, certainly everybody in the West, we went up to the help with the Ratha Yatra, help with the Ratha a couple days, maybe a week earlier. So Danavir Maharaj, I didn't know anything. I was just a bhakta. I didn't know anything about anything, trying to be a bhakta. So he said, hey, go with Jayananda, go with Jayananda. Because they were signing people. You could go to the Berkeley Temple and, cut fruit and cut for the Maha Feast or whatever. You could go here, you could go there, so many different things. He said, go with Jayananda, go with Jayananda. So I raised my hand, and I went with a couple other devotees. He cooked, I don't know how he did it. And there was a large group, probably maybe 15, 20 brahmacharis, and we were hungry young men. Prabhupada said young man means hungry. You can wake them up in the middle of the night. They're hungry. They're ready to go. So he had an old, one of those Boy Scout, no, I mean, Boy Scouts, are the Boy Scouts still even around anymore? But, they had those little camping stoves, little fold-up and you pump it, So he had 2 of those babies. And he had some help, too. He had some ladies who he'd lined up. And he cooked this feast. It was chili, with beans, but with ghee. He would only use ghee. Ghee cooked paneer. So it was chili, and instead of chili con carne, instead of the meat, it was paneer, fried paneer. And then there was peanut butter halva, and then there was cornbread. He had some ladies made some corn. I mean, it was a it was a hearty meal and fed about 20 of us. Guru Kripa became a devotee. He actually came to beat up the devotees. He saw that these men in skirts, they don't know anything about a dhoti or, so much nicer than wearing pants. Pants are quite uncomfortable, actually. But what to do? So he saw these men in pink skirts in his mind. He came to beat up the devotees. He was a tough guy, Guru Kripa. And when he showed up, he got out of bed that morning. He read the day before that, okay, they're building this cart. It was in the San Francisco Chronicle. So he showed up, beat up some devotees. Have like Banasura, he had all those arms and he wanted to use them. What to do? Walked down the street, saw the devotees, was just ready to haul off and whack somebody, and Jayananda met him. Jayananda was solid guy. Jayananda was about 6'2". He was solid. He was a solid guy. And Jayananda said, hey, you look big and strong. Help me. You can help us. And he said it with such conviction, Guru Kripa said, he just kind of caught him off guard and he fell in line. And he helped him getting some refrigerator donated and you were going to use it for something and unload the lumber and, Next thing you knew, they fed him. He said, best meal he ever had in his life. He said the devotees were so nice and fun and, So next thing you knew, it was 10 o'clock at night. He had a great day and take a swing at everybody. He was completely exhausted. Jayananda just turned him around and engaged him. So after a day like that, Jayananda worked as hard. It was great. We're young men, a lot of passion. So I remember we came back to the temple. Karandar was there and a number of other devotees. And the little temple on Frederick Street the temple room couldn't have been bigger than, I don't know what, like a third of this room. It was a small temple room. And then there was the basement where the devotees, brahmacharis, slept downstairs. And, there were like 100 devotees in there. There was nowhere to sleep. People were sleeping on the fire escape, on the roof, in the basement, everywhere, Karandar and we cleared out a closet. There was a broom closet. And it was a broom closet. It was like a closet about the size of this. And we took all the buckets and brooms and everything out. We threw our sleeping bags, the 2 of us, and slept in there. Then we thought, where's Jayananda? Jayananda slept by the front door, the front door of the little storefront. So, Karandar, he was a very wonderful devotee. Karandar said, Jayananda, hey, you sleep in here. We'll sleep. He looked at me, Bhakti, yeah, no problem. Because, he's a senior devotee. You sleep here, Jayananda. It's a little more quiet, and we'll sleep out in the... He said, no. He said, I don't really like to sleep. He said, you tell the truth, I don't like to sleep. He said, but if I have to sleep, he'd calculated that if he had to lay down, you have to lay down. The body needs rest. He'd calculated, because sometimes it was a rough area in those days, with it was the edge of Haight-Ashbury is kind of a rough area, and people would try to break in sometimes. So he'd calculated that if I have to lie down, let me lie down by the front door. That way, if somebody tries to break in, I'll wake up. He'd calculated how to place his body where it would be service, even though he was sleeping. Because he'd have to trip over him, and he would wake up and be able to protect the temple. I was amazed. I thought, this is a devotee. This guy's too much, It's the first time I met Jayananda. Well, I guess I'll look down this thing. Hey, Govinda. Oh, I mentioned the other day, I think, but Tamal Krishnamurti told me that when Jayananda got Gayatri, he was nervous. You know, he knew Prabhupada. He knew Prabhupada from New York, from San Francisco, and then back in New York, he helped drive Prabhupada around. Went on so many morning walks. But as we've experienced, many devotees at the time of initiation have a brain freeze. They forget the four negative principles. They offer their obeisances the wrong way, forget the pranam mantras. I mean, I've seen so many things, you know, forget to get their beads. It happens, you know. It's a humble, modest, shy devotee, so it's a good thing on one hand. So he just froze up, and he couldn't remember the Gayatri mantra at all. Couldn't properly repeat it. He'd got it all mumbled up. Then Prabhupada gave him the Gayatri thread, and you know those threads, if you're not careful, they get completely tangled. Everyone's experienced it, right? So the whole thing just became a knot of yarn, all jumbled up. Prabhupada had to untangle it. He got it tangled up again tomorrow. So he got a caught in the buttons of his shirt. You know, Prabhupada had to untangle it, you know. Prabhupada finally said, "You are hopeless." Can you imagine if Prabhupada said that? Prabhupada said, Tamal told me, Prabhupada said, "You are hopeless." And then Prabhupada said, "But you're so sincere, whatever you chant, Krishna will accept." So that gives you a flavor of his relationship with Prabhupada. I had this personal experience. I was the Sankirtan leader at the Detroit Temple. It was wintertime, and Detroit, we're talking winter. We're not talking, I'll have to put a cap on. We're talking, 2 pairs of long johns and a pair of pants and a layering to the max, 2 T-shirts and a jacket and a sweatshirt and a scarf. And even then, after 15, 20 minutes, you are frozen. You were. I so many times I had all those layers of clothing and then those big jackets and gloves. My hands were so numb, I couldn't give change I was like a vending machine. I would just talk to people. Then I'd say, okay, and I'd have small books in this pocket, Bhagavatam in this pocket. If they gave a 5, they'd take change because I couldn't move my fingers. I've lost the circulation in 2 of my toes because of that. So it was cold. So he was getting all of his brahmacharis out. We were sharing the Sankirtan office, and he got his crew out. Everybody had their lunch. We got everybody going. We got them all out. Then we were going out to our spots. And I remember, I think it was actually Prahlad Priya. They called him Philly Phil. His name is Phil. Is something? Yeah. So I think it was Prahlad Priya. And he got his Sankirtan spot, got his lunch, and he was going out with a little windbreaker. So Jayananda said, no, you can't go out. You're going to freeze. You're going to be a popsicle in no time, So he said, take this jacket. And he took off his jacket and gave him his jacket. And then Bhakti Phil said, I can't take your jacket. Jayananda said, nah, don't worry. My mom sent me a brand new one. I got a much better jacket. You just take this one. So off he went, in Sankirtan. Then by the time we got everybody out, I was getting into my car to go to my spot. Jayananda was getting into his car to go to his spot. And he had that little windbreaker on. I said, Jayananda, what happened? I thought you had another jacket. He said, no, I just told him that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken it. I said, well, hang on a minute. We managed, if, somebody wasn't going out that, we found him another jacket. But that was just his mood, He, let's see what else we got going on here. He had leukemia, if I didn't say that. Yeah. And nothing else had worked. And so he went down and tried one of these clinics in Tijuana because he wanted to serve. He wanted to get through Ratha Yatra. To his last breath, he was raising money for the first LA Ratha Yatra, which was absolutely fantastic. So he was down at this Tijuana clinic. So we went to see him. And I'd been traveling or doing something. I knew he was here. The devotees were, taking him prasadam and going to visit him. But when I got back, he'd been here about 2 weeks. And, he looked like death personified. He was just really ravaged by it. It just eats you up from inside. It eats the bone marrow. It's a nasty thing. So I went down there, and I went to his room. I said, I forget his name, John, or I forget what his name was, something, And They said, oh, he's in room such and such. So I went to the room, and the room was empty. And I thought, oh, man, I've missed him. And he's left his body, and there were no devotees here, you know. I was just really... And then I saw there was a little sign on his door, little sign, you know, about this size or smaller. And it said, Bhagavad Gita classes, Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. solarium. They had like a sunroom, you know, whatever. And there he was. So I said, where's the solarium? And there he was, surrounded, looked like Jesus on the Mount. You know, he was surrounded by all these people in wheelchairs and stretchers, and he was in a wheelchair himself. And he was preaching. He was giving Bhagavad Gita class. And these people were listening. They were an attentive audience, let me tell you. There's about 15, 20 people sitting around him, and he was giving Gita class. So, and we brought him he loved prasadam. He was a big prasadam hound. So we had one plate, probably all samosas, and some samosas and pakoras, and we had another plate that was all watermelon. And so when we gave him the plate of the samosas, he took samosas. He ate about 5 or 10. I don't know how, but he didn't touch the other side. And I realized he was blind in one eye. He'd gone blind. He could only see half the plate, you know. Never complained, didn't say anything about it, you know. So, what else? Ratnabhushan, the way he left his body. In those days, you know, there's old cassette players. So they had a endless loop of Prabhupada chanting japa. Ramaswar told me this, because Ramaswar was there when he left his body. And, you know, he's lying on a mat. A lot of times when people, toward the end, they like to be on the floor. It's not uncommon. I don't know what it is, but they just want to get on the floor. So he was lying on the floor with a mat and a sheet. And right next to his head was this tape player. A Prabhupada chanting, you know, endless loop. And the way the last thing, he had no strength, no energy, nothing. Somehow or other, he picked up his head and pushed his body and put his head on top of the cassette. His head was literally, his ear was on the cassette player, and that's how he left his body. I mean, he wanted to get as close to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's chanting as possible, and left his body within 5-10 minutes. Ratnabhushan told me he was the first one to design a collapsible Ratha Yatra cart. You know, if you see the cart in LA, it goes down, the canopy goes down so they can get under the phone wires, you know. And that was Ratnabhushan. I mean, that was Jayananda, who, you know, mechanical engineer. Ratnabhushan designed how to have that canopy go down and go under and go up. At the Washington, D.C., the Ratha Yatra is part of the 4th of July parade. And in the 4th of July parade in Washington, D.C., they got a viewing stand. And they got senators and congressmen, sometimes the vice president there. They got the joint chiefs of staff. You know. So by Krishna's arrangement, right in front of that viewing stand, there's a wire. So when the cart comes to that wire, they crank down the canopy. And it goes under the wire, and they crank it back up. Everybody in the viewing stand thought it was like they were nodding, like a respectful nod to the dignitaries. So they all saluted. You've got the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you know, congressmen with their hands over their heart. They all saluted Lord Jagannath, you know. Anuttama told me it was really blissful, you know. Lord Jagannath has a very blissful sense of humor, so he got them all to offer their respects. So Jayananda is the one who crafted that. He joined in 1967, drove his taxi cab 15 hours plus to get overtime to pay the temple rent. At the same time, he was taking care of 15 to 20 brahmacharis. So many other people were the president. And he said, no. He liked to assist. You know, he would organize the Sunday feast. Everybody, you know, in those days, feasts were Sunday feasts. We're talking about a 15 prep, the real deal. Kachoris, samosas, puris, sweet rice, halava, 3 sabjis. You started cooking 3 days before Sunday. Those were the days. So everybody was, in a big feast, big kirtan, everybody's tired. No. He'd organize a big Harinam party. Everyone, any leftovers, they go out and they distribute it in Harinam. He was just. So I guess we'll end with this. And what time is it? Well, maybe we'll do this another Sunday, because this is long and full of nectar. So Prabhupada was wandering practically like a beggar he was, he's a pauper, practically speaking. No money, no facility, nothing, living at the YMCA and so many things. Then later on, you know the story with the crazy drug taker and then Carl and his girlfriend and their cat, and the cat food in the refrigerator, Prabhupada used to take the bus to the Scindia shipping line and ask when the next ship is going back to India, because he had that free read, he had a round-trip ticket on Scindia shipping. And after he did it a couple times, Mr. Forrester was the clerk, the man who was the desk jockey or whatever you call him, ran the office. And Prabhupada would come I don't know how often, once a month, something like that, and checks when the next ship go to India. So, and when he was interviewed for the Leelamrita, Mr. Forrester told this story that Prabhupada would come and ask when's it. And after a couple times, Mr. Forrester said, I don't think you're going back. He said, you come, but you never book passage. Prabhupada said, no, but it gives me some relief knowing I could go. It was not easy. But Prabhupada just, all right, well, there's a ship. If I need to go, I can go, So it wasn't easy. And then ultimately, what year was it? The big New York Ratha Yatra. It was 76. I think you're right. I think it was 76. So, and it went down Fifth Avenue, which Prabhupada said is the most important street in the most important city in the most important country, certainly in those days, of the world. I mean, Fifth Avenue is called the Avenue of Heroes. It's when Eisenhower came back from winning, the commander-in-chief for World War II, he goes down Fifth Avenue for a ticker tape parade. When that John Glenn, walks on the moon or first man in space, whatever he did, he goes down Fifth Avenue. That's what they saved Fifth Avenue for, President comes and then he goes down Fifth Avenue. Somehow or other, Toshan Krishna got a permit to go down Fifth Avenue with the Ratha Yatra. So just imagine Prabhupada as a beggar, pauper. I mean, he wasn't. He was a saintly Vaishnava, and if you have Krishna, you have everything. But from that position, an unknown stranger in a strange land, to be sailing down Ratha Yatra cart down Fifth Avenue with thousands of devotees, it's just mystical. How did that, in what? 10 years. It's just inconceivable, right? And Jayananda is the one who organized those carts, and there's so many stories about it. But after the whole thing was over, Prabhupada it was a wonderful festival. And Prabhupada's sitting on the balcony of that outdoor veranda. I don't know how many floors up, but they're overlooking New York City in the Manhattan skyscraper. And Prabhupada's sitting there, and all the big sannyasis and big GBCs, and everybody's there, and they're relishing it, and and Prabhupada's holding transcendental court. Prabhupada looks out and says, "Where's Jayananda? Go and get him." So Adhikesh was the temple president. Where was Jayananda? After organized the whole thing, fundraised all the money for the festival, collected all the bhoga, organized the cooks, built the carts, led the parade, and made sure that everything got back, all the equipment that they rented got back that evening, so they didn't have to pay for an extra day. That's Jayananda. Jayananda stole pants He stole a pair of pants from a Sears, a pair of work clothing. Temple had no money, and he stole a pair of pants. And he got caught. And he explained the whole thing. The police, they showed up. The police and the store detective were so impressed, they paid for his pants and let him go. He never stole anything again. He never did it again. You know, I'll steal. I mean, no. No five-finger discounts, no. But it just shows you the caliber of the police detective and the store detective and the policeman paid for the pants. So he was frugal. He was a frugal guy. He would spend for Krishna opulently, but he was frugal. So, got everything back. So Prabhupada sits in the evening, everyone's, wonderful assembly of senior devotees. Prabhupada says, where's Jayananda? So Adhikesh goes to find him. He was underneath in one of the Sankirtan cars. All you could see was his feet. He was wearing overalls. He was changing the oil and fixing the transmission and this and that. Because, all the devotees came back from Sankirtan parties. They all came for the Rath Yatra. They're going out the next morning. So he was servicing a couple of the cars that needed some work. So he was underneath there fixing the car. Adhikesh says, Prabhupada wants to see you. He said, I can't go like this. No, he just wants to encourage me. It's all right. He didn't go. Adhikesh reported back, well, Prabhupada, he's fixing the cars, he's covered with grease, and he can't come. Prabhupada told Adhikesh, go and get him. Sent Adhikesh back again. Again, Adhikesh explained. Jayananda said to Adhikesh, well, the Sankirtan devotees are leaving early tomorrow morning, and I've got to fix the truck. I can't. He went back a second time, reported to Prabhupada. Prabhupada told Adhikesh, I will not speak until Jayananda comes. So Prabhupada sat there silently. Adhikesh said, Prabhupada's not speaking until you come. Jayananda came in his overalls, grease under his fingers, the whole thing, and just sat quietly in the corner. Now, the thing is, Jayananda had not slept for who knows how many days, other than maybe a cat nap, So as soon as he sat down, he fell asleep. So, you can picture a room. It's probably 30 devotees. He's sitting in one of the corners covered with grease, and he fell asleep. And there was some little brahmachari, nudging him, or some sannyasi who was waking him up, And he'd wake up very apologetic, and then, So about the third time Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me this personally, about the third time this brahmachari, whoever it was, woke him up, Guru Kripa and poking him with a sharp elbow. Prabhupada said, don't touch him. Prabhupada said, he's doing more service than all of you combined. And Prabhupada was completely satisfied just to see Jayananda, there he is. And Jayananda fell asleep again. Prabhupada just went on talking, but he wanted Jayananda in the room. So we can end there because we're over time, but it gives you a little flavor of the caliber of what it means to be a genuine Vaishnava, Jayananda ki jai. Hare Krishna. We'll do this another day.